One cue I like to use in the middle is if a kid's still falling, get them to like get a focal point to the back or get them to hold the left arm. One of those two cues is an easy cheat code. They could still have bad technique, but if they just stay here and delay, as long as they're delayed, they'll get to this position and they'll have a big stretch on the disc. But let's get into this where we can try to cover as much as we can. And then you guys had great questions there at the end. I like the questions a lot. Okay, so going back over the API framework, this is literally how I do everything in my life. Jeez, is with the API framework. So we're trying to figure out what are key indications for success. And when you guys were asking me during the break, you were saying how to set up a week when there's a big meet. Try to figure out what lifts or what throws or what weight implement you're training with, and then if you're training with that and the athlete has good throws the next day, use them later on. Gosh, I don't know what the heck I did there. Okay, so you're gonna plan out with the goals in the calendar, and then obviously, as I mentioned in the last one, we want to provide as much clarity and build the culture. And so this is actually a sweet picture. I think it's me. Yeah, it's me, Big L over here, and then Sam Mattis. So Sam Mattis is in the green shirt. He's a two-time Olympian, two-time national champ, NCAA champ. Josh Sarachan on the left, who is a D2 runner-up. And then Sam Weeks, who also coaches with us at Garage Strength. That was at the Olympic trials. Okay, so same thing as the previous slide from the shot, right? Is that we're in a 2.5 meter circle. Okay, the throw lasts about a minute or 1.5 to 2 seconds, 250 milliseconds. You're throwing at the high school level a 1K or a 1.6. Okay, I wish we would throw actually a high school. I've thought about either a 1.5 or a 1.75. They throw the 1.75 internationally. Okay, all that matters. Angle of release, speed of release, height of release, right? That's all that supposedly matters. And then motor unit function. Rate coding drastically improves with plyometrics, so that's why we like to use things like plyometrics. But as far as the science matters, I don't really think we need to talk about it. Okay, let's get into the actual nitty-gritty. So again, moving through all of these layers, we've got to think through the patterns of who is in the group. And so you guys, I had a couple questions. One of the questions that I thought was great that I wanted to bring up here was a group of one shot circle, one discus circle, 20 kids. What do you do? Okay. What we need to do is look at who's the coachable kids, what's their mobility like, what kind of patterns are consistent, come up with 1 to 2 drills based off of the throwing patterns, and this is going to happen on day one, right? You're going to look at them and you're going to be like, okay, they're all pretty consistently doing these 1 to 3 errors. Okay, so now they have 2 drills, and so in this case, we can go, all right, these 8 kids are going to throw discus, these 8 kids are going to throw, actually 7, I guess, let's go 7 kids here, 7 kids throwing shot, 7 kids doing drills on the side, and we want to try to split the groups up so that they're sort of laid out into a pattern that they're going to be with someone who's comparable to them that's going to help push them. Okay, so that's how I like to think about assessing that group setting there. I'm trying to think about some of the questions that you guys posed during the break so that we can make this even more applicable. That's why I want you to bring me that question when you remember it. Okay, next slide would be, this is going back to, again, I want to hammer home, and I thought about this a little bit further as far as what to cut if you don't have enough time. Okay, let's say that you do have a head coach. The head coach wants to have a team meeting on a regular basis every single day. That's 20 minutes long. You are immediately going to have to cut out mobility in the beginning, that warm-up. And you're going to have to just do a throwing specific warm-up. Then the next thing that you're likely going to have to cut out is about 20 minutes of your lift. Keep the priority, always the throws, And then the lift or plyometrics is second priority, and then sadly, mobility. Now, when we're looking at technique with discus, it's the same concept that I like to think through as the rotation in the shot. And this is why I do really, really, really believe every discus thrower in high school should throw shot. I'll use an example. We had a kid that was, by the end of his high school career, he threw 196.10. When he first started throwing with us, he threw 91 feet and 27 feet, and he told me he would never be a good shot putter. And I was like, I don't care, you've got to throw the shot because the shot technique will help you get strong enough to handle throwing the discus really well. Ends up his senior year, he throws 59.11, I think was his PR. Jason was either 59.10 and Jason's training partner was 59.11, something like this. But he was all but a 60-foot shot putter, and at the same time threw 195, 196.10 in the discus, and it's because of throwing both of those events. So I did want to bring that up, and it's going to be almost the exact same technical pattern. The standing throw that we like to use with the band would be having the discus out here and holding as the discus would be attached to, like, legend would be holding, and we come back and then we sit here and try to feel this. That feeling from the banded stand is what we want them to try to get to when we're doing the full. And one thing I also want to bring up with this is I like to teach the stand and then go to the full and just constantly recap. The whole goal is to get to the standing throw. The whole goal is to get to the standing position. And then again, half turn, left side comes down quickly, the big step, the non, and then the full. Okay, one thing, a lot of people will ask questions. I was surprised nobody asked this in the shop, but a lot of people ask questions about this regarding the discus. This is Alex Rose here. He's a 3-time Olympian and is the number 11 discus thrower in the history of the world. But if you see here, a reverse would be when his right foot at the front rotates forward and how he sort of just slides forward. Okay, a non-reverse would be if Alex went like this and just stepped later, like a delayed position. So something that we use, okay, with discus throwers is if they want to transition from a non-reverse to a reverse, we go through this process, okay? We'll teach them how to do, if they throw right-handed, we'll teach them how to do a drop lunge because they're going forward. And then they go from doing a drop lunge to now they're back here, and now they just have to step and turn, okay? And then they go step forward and turn. I actually skipped one. Now we're going step forward, turn, left leg comes around. And then you go through where they go step forward, turn, left around. Then they do this, try that in the throw without fouling, and then they can hit a reverse where they actually do foul a little bit. Okay, so Legend's going to talk about the release, and then we'll get back into all this. But Legend had, I want to say it was actually in 2020, the release dilemma.
Yeah. So
yeah,
the release dilemma ended up being a pretty funny story. I moved up from Virginia to Pennsylvania in 2019 and had a whole year that was pretty successful, and then COVID happened and we were trying to look for changes. Somehow we got along the lines of looking at my throw, and it paused right as I was releasing it. Like, it was still in my fingers. I'm about to release it, and it was my middle finger as the point of release, not the pointer finger. And Dane and everyone's like, yo, why? Came off kind of weird in your hand with that. I was like, no, I've always released with the middle finger. That's just how I've always thrown it. No one ever told me that I was actually supposed to like bowl it on my hand with the pointer finger. So I just always used it in the middle finger. And this was 2 years out of college. I had already been an All-American and never was truly taught how to release the discus. So what we did was I took a note from a former teammate, Cam Young. He was a 2019 national champ, D3 discus thrower. And he said, hey man, how about instead of just holding the discus like with the flat hand, just connect the middle and ring and pointer finger. That was literally it. Just connect these two fingers and try to release it off the pointer. I was like, okay. Kid you not, the next practice, it was like clear as day, boom. Clean flights, every single throw. And that's what the first thing is hand placement. So the first thing, the hand placement has to facilitate a pointer finger release. And that is the most fundamental thing with clean flights, and it's not anything more complicated than that. There's a lot of comments on throws where it's like, oh my God, clean release, how do you do that? It's nothing more than just having a clean release off the pointer finger. Yeah, the best releases are completely clean, zero wobble, and then the slight tip down was a tip that I heard from a couple of the Europeans, because they always had this like, you know, when you see the throw and it kind of starts with like, if I'm a righty, the right tips down and it just like cleanly turns over. It catches the wind a little nicer. So one of the tips was instead of thinking of the release straight flat, think about that tip just like an inch down.
And you almost see like some will be, Alex does this a little where it's like their hand, they're almost like this to help keep the edge just a little lower.
Yeah, just a little bit of that edge lower kind of helps with that nice clean turnover. Yeah, I got pointer finger there underlined.
But Legend would go out, we got a net.
Yeah.
And he would go out and just take 100 throws standing like into the net. And it's like, I think that is something that, it's like going to the driving range. It's like taking batting practice. It's a skill that some kids, it sounds really mundane, but some kids love that type of work where they'll just
I'm one of those types of athletes. I like just grinding away at a skill and just seeing a little bit of improvement. But that was literally the strategy and how to fix it permanently was, all right, I got an immediate fix now to lock it in after practice, 100 throws. Stand throws. Just boom, right into the net. We're lucky that we have a net where I can just grab it from here instead of like throwing 3, running out, coming back. That makes it a little easier. You can throw into a cage if you have the cage up, or if you have a couple tarps in the backyard, you can put them down. But yeah, it was literally just 100 reps every other day or a couple of days a week to just lock it in so it was automatic. And there's a couple tricks out there that I've been a part of where it's like, okay, like teaching how to release like a first-time discus throw or like flicking it in the air. I think that's a good one. Or bowling it on the ground. I think those are good for like day one tricks on like how to understand that, okay, it doesn't come off the pinky, it comes off the pointer finger.
Even like 10-foot throws.
Yeah, but like the actual release of it being flat is the most important. I wouldn't get too caught up in like the bowl or flicking drill because it's just that's not how the throw works. That's too vertical. Stick with the horizontal. Just throw into the net. If you have like 5 rubber discs, start there. Start with what you got and then roll with that. But give it a lot of reps. A lot of reps is kind of the key to lock it in, make it permanent. Yeah.
Here.
So that's my release story. It helped me literally PR by like 3 meters the meet I had after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is one of the quickest acting things that you can get a high school kid is to fix their release immediately. And Legend did go on in 21 to be, he got 5th at the Olympic trials in 21. It was the #1 qualifier actually. Yes. I got it. Let's go.
And kind of on the same lines as that, how many drills a day is too many?
Okay, so if
Kid specific, but
this is still okay. I'll go to the next slide. Okay, here we go. This is good because if I'm looking at these issues, right? Consistent problems. I'm gonna answer this. A problem that we see with the discus, okay, is athletes will pick up their right early, okay? So they'll go like this. They'll pick up their right, so they immediately are like this. Yeah. So they go pick up the right. Now they're entering this way. Okay, so they're sort of falling in immediately, right? And then the next thing, if you see they rip with the non-dominant arm to enter instead of entering from the dominant leg, and then they knee sweep. So they do this, and then they jump off the left. Okay, so what we want to see is we want to see patience in double support in the back, and it's a easy. I like to tell people there's two things. Okay, this position in the back is just like this position on the finish. It's the same thing. Hold it down, okay? And then the next thing that I like to use as a cue for football guys is that if we turn, the way that if you watch somebody get to the line, they get to the line, they're a wide receiver, they check. Now I'm in the same position. So I'm going to go turn, and then I can push. And then when I push, my energy is going this way. And really the only way I'm going to get back to the middle, this is like angular momentum now, is if I go wide, and as I'm pushing, I try and squeeze and close my legs back to get to the middle. So in the back, if I had somebody who has a problem, I would have them do, let's say, 3 to 5 drills just here. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'll post, Loveland does this. She does this, and then she comes back, and then she takes her throw. So like that every time she's doing a drill, but it could be 3 to 5, throw. 3 to 5, throw. Usually 3 is the sweet spot. But I like to do 3, take a throw. 3, take a throw. Unless I have a big group, then they're doing drills on the side. Yeah. Okay, now the middle of the circle is where we'll see we land and we're like falling like this. So now the kid sort of like falls like that, right? That's a consistent theme. So then they typically will land flat-footed with their knee extended, and then the left side's open. One of the issues is that stems a lot from the back of the circle. But something that we can do here is go patient, and then teach them that when they ground in the middle, their heel has to be up and their knee has to be flexed here. Okay, and then the front left shoulder's open. Well, what do they do in the back? They open with their left shoulder. Okay, so of course it'll be open at the front. Weight shifts forward too early, so when their left leg grounds, they're like this. Instead of being back over here, like 65 to 70% of their weight should be over that right. And then they'll jump on the finish to get out of that to save the throw. They have to jump on the finish to save the throw, whereas we want them to be grounded longer. If they're grounded longer, they'll have more ground reaction forces. They still will lift off the ground. But those are real consistent errors, okay? So the cues are here. Patient turning, okay? Bend the right knee when you go there, when you're coming out of the back. Think about more of the right side relative. If you see somebody who pulls, think more right, and I'm only talking to right-handed throwers, okay? More right side turn before you pick up, okay? Lengthen the leg, sweep down. And this goes back to that right around the left, left around the right, right around the left, okay? Left knee, if the left knee is over rotating, so pretend I'm throwing this way here. I want my left knee to be middle of the sector, okay? I'll actually cue some kids to let their left knee up the right sector and push off a little bit. Don't let the left knee go past middle of the sector. That will also help them in the middle and at the front. Sweep up. So these are some cues that I like to use. And then honestly, one cue I like to use in the middle is if a kid's still falling, get them to like get a focal point to the back or get them to hold the left arm. One of those two cues is an easy cheat code. They could still have bad technique, but if they just stay here and delay, as long as they're delayed, they'll get to this position and they'll have a big stretch on the disc. Okay, and that left shoulder, wrap the left, hold the left arm, and then feel the left arm a little bit. That's going to help. That'll help with the weight shift and with the left shoulder. And it usually, if an athlete jumps too much, get them to do more non-reverses. Get them to do, like, we call them no feet or fixed feet, where they just throw and their feet stay grounded and they could work on the release with the discus. So I think it could be anywhere from 50 to 70 drills in a day, or it could be, like, even if we're taking 20 to 30 throws, if you're taking 20 throws and you take 3 drills before each throw, you just got to be aware of, like, the line and stuff and the flow of the practice. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and then these would be the drills off of that. Open drill to pause on the left. Okay. Pause left side and hold right here. Boom, hold that. Just, and like even here, turn, hold that. Like, get comfortable, pause, hold this right here. Hold. Now sweep. Like, doing really slow movements and making them feel the position there is really, and some kids like it. Like, if you ever watch the old Werner Gunther video, he's gliding and he's on the balance beam, he's going, and he's just going like 40%, 30%. This dude's one of the greatest ever. Like, we can do that, and kids like to do stuff like that. Put them on the parking lot. Here, okay, who can hold the left leg with the right leg long? Okay, I gotta hold, sweep. Like that, do those movements. Even walking through the circle to get them to learn the technique. We'll do throws where it's like, 40%. Now, they walk through. It's really hard in these shoes on the carpet. And they do that properly, okay? So those are some of the drills that we like to use. Pausing in the powers is also a really good one. Fixed feet throws there too. Okay, next one. Okay, so the plan, we're looking at that week with the plyometrics, okay? The mobility work, we're trying to piece all of that stuff in. Now we can keep moving. We went over this in the previous one. You can go, yeah. Okay, so now we're going, these would be the distances, okay, that we're setting up based off of discus that I thought there, that you guys could build from. I do want to say, so we call it the 5, 10, 15, 20 framework. Legend, actually, part of his grade as an employee is that framework, is like our on-site manager actually like judges our trainers. Like, are they, when you have somebody that's 5 feet in front of you, you're spotting. When they're 10 feet, you're giving a directive of like, or you're instructing. When they're 15 feet, you're giving a directive. When they're 20 feet, you're making eye contact. And that's like a framework we use at the gym when we've got 50 kids in the room. And it's just like boom, boom, boom. We're just constantly going through that framework. And that's the same framework that we use at the circles with all the throwers. And it's like when you practice that and you practice like, I'm going to yell at every single kid in the next 5 minutes and I'm going to do it again, I'm going to do it again. Then they buy into it. They're all on it because they know that you're paying attention. But that framework really does work well in the weight room and in the circles. Okay. So this is something, I want to go in a little bit more with culture on the discus one, because it's a lot of the same stuff as far as training is concerned. But this rule, okay, 25-5, we've found from our on-site attendance at Garage Strength, if we can get if a kid trains for 20 weeks, okay, they have a over 80% likelihood that they will train for over 3 years. It's insane. If they don't make that point, it's like a 50-50 crapshoot. If you can get a kid, okay, for 3 months to train with you, all right, and let's say there's 1 month before the season begins that they train, maybe you're showing up 3 days a week or something like that. And then 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 months after, now you've got them for that 20 weeks. And that's like the big thing that we try to strive towards, is that if we get a kid for 20 weeks and 5 days a week for 5 hours, they're in the system and they will become champions. Like, legitimately, that's what ends up happening. So that's like the rule that we try to follow. Okay. And another thing here that I think is important is there's a book called Persuasion or Influence from Robert Cialdini. Okay, and so he uses these principles. Okay, and the principles are over on the left side. It's scarcity, authority, reciprocity, consistency. Do you have cool factor? And is there social proof? Okay, so these are tactics as coaches that we could use when we're implementing our training. And some of the things I'll use where, scarcity might be like you only have so many more throws until states, right? Like we know that in PA, states is like May 21st or May 23rd. It's that right before Memorial Day for us. We know that there's a limited time, okay? So if you're speaking to a kid and you talk to them, there's only so many days until then. Then they get a little bit more like, okay, man, I do need to start to train a little bit more. Then the next step is like, hey, somebody else is taking throws and you're not. That's another form of scarcity, which can be a little negative, but it can work. Authority goes back to the planning and having those results. Okay, this goes back to you guys got the entire plan, you got the assessment, and now you have to show them. They now will look at you as the authority figure, and they should, in most cases, they will be respecting you for your authority. And then the next point, okay, is the reciprocity point. And this is where it's like, okay, now we have to do this for these kids, and guess what? They're going to help us operate well at practice. We're helping them achieve their goals. They'll be less annoying to us at practice. Okay, that's like the reciprocity there. Consistency is that every single day, they're going to know exactly what they need to do when they show up to practice. They know that you guys are going to have a plan. They know that you guys are going to tell them what the warm-up is, what the drills are going to be, what the throws are going to be, what the implements are going to be, what group is where, who, are we lifting today, are we doing jumps? Everything is laid out. And it's consistently done every single day. You have those clear expectations. And these, I want to also hammer home, these are like, if you look this dude up, Robert Cialdini, this is his entire life's work is around influence and persuasion and what ends up happening to get people to buy things and stuff like that, but also how to influence people to do positive things. The cool factor, okay? This means that they like you guys, okay? I'll think about my dad. My dad's a huge Doobie Brothers fan. I'll go back to the music scenario. He always wanted to play the Doobie Brothers when we would lift in the garage. But me and my brother didn't want to listen to the Doobie Brothers because, as you know, we want to listen to Rage instead of Doobie Brothers. So we never wanted to lift with my dad. Now, when my dad started to let us play the music, then we would lift with my dad. So it made him more relatable to us to let us pick the music instead of listening to, I think his name was Michael McDonald, their lead singer. So instead of that, we got to listen to Rage. Now, that also showed my dad got into Rage after this, and he was also a high school wrestling coach. So he got a little charisma with high school kids because he was cooler because he knew who Rage was. I don't know if anybody in here knows who Rage is, but I think that's like a cool factor that you guys as coaches can take to practice. And then we can use social proof on top of all these things that we're giving you. You can use social proof through social media. You can use social proof in the sense that you can show the athletes something that Krauser or Valerie or Kovacs are doing as a way of like, look, these guys are doing this. But also, you can use it as a way to post them or to send to their parents or to post on Facebook or to post on your high school website. Look at what this kid just threw 50 plus feet, or they just benched 300 pounds for the first time. Whatever it is, and now kids like that. Kids like seeing that success, and parents like to see that success, and that's a way to get them to really buy into the entire system. Okay, so and that's like a key part of culture. You can keep going. So on a daily basis, this is where the consistency comes into play. Okay, it shows up here, and everything comes down through the entire workout as we showed. But also, this is a big important part, is that the drills have to be laid out, and the cues that you're using have to be related to that specific movement. We can go to the next slide. And this would be what that exact week would be laid out with a split, and even if they would want to do abs or anything along those lines, we've got the range throws in there. I did want to put in, so I put in some different stuff for this week for discus. Range throws is an example of like setting we'll put two cones out, two groups of cones, and they've got it's like target practice. And the thing is, it creates I genuinely feel it's like batting practice for throwing. You get into a rhythm and you get a speed and it becomes more about feeling and less about aggression and anger and more about just getting dialed in with that technical movement. And it's a really good way to prevent kids from melting down when they're not throwing a specific distance. Okay, you can pull them back. And then what ends up happening is kids get more dialed in with that technical movement. And then all of a sudden they start ripping bombs because they're actually technically sound with things. And then that would lead to that Friday mock meet. So this actually would help with a layout for how you would lay out that week. Okay, now this is some of the stuff that I really did want to talk more so about, because I think even if we would argue about technique, it doesn't matter. If we argue about lifting, like I said, it doesn't matter. I want everybody in here to go back to their school, to go right to your AD and say, where's the all-time record board for shot and disc? Do you guys have javelin here? Okay. Some people do. PA, we have it. Yeah. But everybody has to go back and say, what's the all-time record board? Okay? And you put it somewhere where the kids can see it. If they don't know what to shoot for, okay, there's no goals. We've got to set it up. Like, what is the all-time record board? What's the top 5? Like, dude, one of the coolest things for me was, there's 2 cool things. I remember at Penn State, when I threw at Penn State, I wanted to get into the top 10. Okay, I got into the top 10. Joe Kovacs is the one who knocked me out of the top 10. So for my entire life, I can say I was on the top 10 at Penn State, and Joe's the one who knocked me out of the top 10. So those are cool things. It's like you strive for that to make the team better and to make the culture better long term. Okay? The benchmarks for the clubs, the benchmark clubs for genders, those would be distance. It could be distance, it could be lifting related. Okay? How many girls have thrown 35 feet? How many girls have thrown 40? How many girls have thrown 45? Those are big distances, and they should be celebrated. Same thing with the guys. 50, 55, 60, whatever those numbers are for your school, now those are clubs that are on the wall, in the gym, in the weight room, wherever it is, in your classroom if you're a teacher. Then you have the lifting max board for the year. Guess what happens when they have a lifting max board up on the wall? They try way harder because everybody sees their max. And then other people come in and they go, well, Johnny only benched 215 and Jason benched 260. Man, Johnny's a baby. Like, that's what happens. And it creates some culture like, yo, work harder. Guess what? Work harder. Work a little harder. And then it turns into a good competitive thing. Banners for state champions, okay? Everybody should, and if your school doesn't do this, yell at the AD, okay? But then you start doing it. You can go to halfpricebanners.com. They didn't pay me to make this ad. That's where we buy all of our banners from. They're not that expensive, and literally we've had athletes say, we have a kid, Lucas Warning, he's an All-American at Lehigh. He was in tears when we put these up for him when he was an All-American. That's what it means to athletes. When you create the culture, when you create that environment, you get a banner. You're up on the wall. You're immortalized in their eyes. Like, that's how kids feel. And it's a really privileged thing to be up there. And it should be celebrated if they're achieving that status, right? A board, I also think a board for regional or county champs, or even just qualifying for states. You have a board up on the wall that people can see. I want to get up on the wall to be a state qualifier. And then we try to track total throws taken monthly. We have the award for the biggest growth throughout the season, okay? So who has the biggest increase in their PR throughout the year? And then another big one here is a PR bell. And I have to admit, I hated the idea of a PR bell. We put a PR bell in the gym. And I didn't want to do this because I thought only CrossFitters did this. But this year at the Olympics, guess what they had? They had a bell that everybody would ring. And one of my best friends in track and field, his name's Aaron Gadsden. His wife, Thea LaFawn, won the triple jump Olympic title. And the coolest thing is, if you should YouTube her. She gets up there and she's ringing this as hard as she could. And to this day, she's like, dude, that was like my Dragon Ball Z moment. I was going to take that all in. It's like, this is the best triple jumper in the world, and she's celebrating on a PR bell. That's what she cared about. It's like, that's what, we need to do these things to make the environment fun for kids to come out and train. I think that there might be one more slide after this. So actually, let's go back. I want everybody really to think through, at minimum, an all-time record board. Benchmark clubs are easy, okay? 40-foot club, 50-foot club, 60-foot club. Wrestling in Pennsylvania, wrestling's huge. You get 100 wins in wrestling, they're probably going to put you on a fire truck and they're going to take you through the town. Literally, that's what happens in PA. So those are things that other sports do. 1,000-yard rushing club, 2,000 yards. Like, it's other sports are doing it. We can do that, and it'll bring a lot of kids to then have something to shoot for. And I think that's ultimately the biggest thing. And really, I think it's important to think through. It really only takes one kid. Like, you get one kid to buy in, and one kid goes to 2, 2 goes to 4, it's over. Literally, it's over. It might take a couple years, but all of a sudden, 5 years from now, it's a whole different world. And this is to the same online webinar on Monday that we're doing on YouTube. I want to just go over this real quick. Technique rules, rep, it always comes back to who's going to take more reps. Support the athlete. Use the ideas around influence, those 6 key aspects. And the big thing is just really try to figure out on a daily basis how to create that positive culture and how to motivate, how to get kids to be motivated and to want to strive towards something. I think the more clarity, I think that goes back to like, we're going to give you clarity on what you can strive towards. That makes it, now they have a passion, and that passion creates purpose. And when you have a kid that has purpose, they're unstoppable. And that's what we're trying to do here with the throwers. Okay. So thanks. Any questions? Yeah.
If you have a kid doing both, right? We only have them 5 days a week, maybe 2 hours.
Yeah, this is a good question.
So at 20 to 30 throws, if you've got...
I would do this. I would go, okay, let's say you have a kid who's a shot putter predominantly, better shot putter than discus. Say Monday, they get 30 shot throws. Tuesday, they have to take, let's say they do both, shot and disc. If they do both on Tuesday, then Wednesday they can go back and just throw shot. And then Thursday, they have to do both again, and that's the buy-in. So we'll do like these buy-in type things. That's the buy-in to do the mock meet and not have to do it for discus. They can just do shot. And it's like if they have a mixed day, it's 15 to 20 throws a piece. If it's just the only just shot, then you could go 25 to 30. You get 15 shot throws and then you go throw discus for 20 reps. That's good. They're getting good reps in, as long as they're not clowning around too much. But that's where it also benefits to let them play their music so it's so loud they can't talk to each other. And they can't hear what you're yelling at them. Anybody else?
What are your heavy implements weigh?
For discus?
Yeah, for the girls, shot, everything.
Girls, I don't, 125 is a really, really good implement. 125 discus. I don't think you need to go heavier than that in disc. For guys, 175 and 2K, if they're good 2K. Meaning like they're more experienced in those, let's say they're 150, 160 footer. I think before, if they haven't thrown that far, they don't need to throw more than the 175. My complaint I was trying to say earlier, they throw the 175 on the junior level internationally. I wish we threw the 175 for guys in college because it would make, or in high school, it would make the discus more cheap, it'd be cheaper to buy. And we would have, I think we would destroy everybody internationally. That's like a selfish reason. Yeah.
So like on some of the meets, depending on the number of entries, the officials give our athletes 5 minutes to warm up.
Okay, so
To get in the ring.
practice that. So that's where, so this is the one thing I'll say. I say this to kids when they bitch about this. I'll say, what happens when you go to the Olympics? You go to the Olympics and you get 2 throws. You don't get to do your 900 winds. You don't get to do anything. And I know that's an absurd, a crazy comparison, but I'll say, look, if these guys can practice this way, what we can do is learn from them, because they only get 2 throws at warm-ups. And that's at the world stage. That's even usually, sometimes at trials, at nationals, you'll get 3. So what I'll say is do your warm-ups on the side. You know, let's say you have a band, you could do banded stands, you could do spins or drills as part of your warm-up, and then try to take your first throw. If you're only getting 2, try to judge. Am I going to get 3 throws? Am I going to get 4? Well, if I'm going to get 4, have a plan. If it's 4, it's 1 stand, 1 non, 2 fulls. If it's 3, it's 1 non, 2 fulls, or 2 nons, 1 full. Have a plan ahead of time, because oftentimes at comps, at high school comps, kids will be like, well, how many should I take right now? We talked about this yesterday. You know, go over that. Or maybe sometimes the coaches don't say anything, but provide that blueprint of like, if it's 5, it's this. If it's 4, it's this. If it's 3, it's this. And then usually you'll know with the official, like, this guy's going to be the tough guy and not let us take more throws and warm-ups. Yeah, it takes forever. That's also where, like, I think athletes should speak up and be like, yo, what are you doing? Everybody else is only taking 2 max. Yeah. Some athletes will do that as a strategic thing, like to clown other people, to piss them off, which was stupid, but whatever. Thanks for coming to this presentation.